And again, thanks for being here. Welcome to this bonus episode of Cyber Heroes Live, where we're going to talk about how you can protect your people, your profits, and your reputation from cyber criminals during the Christmas period. And look, whilst there are no guarantees that you still won't become a victim of cybercrime, by following the 12 steps that we're about to share with you, you'll ultimately dramatically reduce your risk profile, and you'll sleep better, knowing that you've made yourself, your work colleagues, and importantly, your family a less likely target. Now, I'm your co-host, Matt, and together with Brad, we're glad that you're here. And with that said, we're going to dive in. Here are the 12 tips to ensure that you can have a happy cybercrime-free Christmas. Brad, I appreciate that you're dialing in from home on the back end of COVID round 2. And if you'd like to kick us off with number 1 of 12, we can get going.
No worries. Thanks, Matt. Yeah, I had an unnecessary gift of COVID this time last week, so I wasn't expecting that, but I think it's doing the rounds again, isn't it? So tip number 1, we always mention this to clients over the Christmas break, especially if you're shutting your office, which a lot of people do for those 2 weeks, is just turn off all your devices. If it doesn't need to be on for the 2 weeks, just get rid of it. Anything that's off is obviously something that won't be affected by a cyber criminal. Number 2, again, for the office, if the office is going to be unattended for all that period of time, we recommend unplugging your Wi-Fi, or you can actually talk to your IT provider, if that's us, and we can temporarily disable the Wi-Fi for the period that you're away over Christmas. Most of the enterprise systems have the notion of a schedule, and we can actually turn that schedule on to be disabled. We do it a lot with the schools. The schedule's there for the night time. It turns off all the student Wi-Fi. You can do the same in an office environment as well.
Is that something you'd recommend, Brad? Just out of interest, it could be for weekends or evenings. Is that just a sensible thing to do anyway?
I think so. These days, especially people in close proximity to your business can get on. If you've got something that is potentially something that they want, cyber criminals do that. They sit around in cars looking at Wi-Fi, scanning. You may not say that will happen in the Shoalhaven, but it does. We do see it in logs where people have tried to connect to business Wi-Fi. So it's just a recommendation to turn all that sort of stuff off. It's not a common thing to have that happen, but I think it's worthwhile.
Yeah, we shouldn't, any of us, wherever you're living, have a false sense of security, and that it's always in the news, isn't it? And it's nearly always somewhere else. But certainly we can tell you that as one of the local companies of 22 years that is often the first phone call even for non-clients in a moment of drama. There are so many things going on in the cybercrime space in the Shoalhaven, the South Coast in general. So all of this applies to all of us all of the time. All right, number 3.
Can I ask a quick question on that? What about your security systems? Does it have any effect if you were to roll out, like turning off your Wi-Fi at night? Look, or is it totally separate?
If your security system's connected by Wi-Fi, you can that's going to be a problem. Not all of them are. Some of them connected via the internet and a cable. If the alarm system is on Wi-Fi, one of the suggestions we have is it has its own separate network. So security systems always should be on their own separate network, and a lot of our clients, they are. So their camera systems and everything else don't share the same system as their PCs. Yep. And in those situations, you can actually turn off the SSID and do a lot of things with that Wi-Fi that if it was connected to the security system. So,
yeah, great question, Melissa.
Yeah.
Number 3. What's number 3 about, Brad?
Servers. So we do get a lot of clients ask us to turn off their servers, especially if they're having a break again for this 2-week, 3-week period. Solicitors are a common one. A lot of them ask us to shut down all their equipment. There's 2 reasons for that. Again, if a device is off, it's less likely to become a victim for cybercrime if something were to occur. And also, heat is the big one. We have people leave their on-site servers and they're running and doing all their things, and then we have a 40-degree day, and we've had several over the 20 years I've been in business where servers have been cooked in hot environments. So that's number 3.
Yeah, sure. We're kind of ripping through them, but we are going to camp out on a few that are coming up. So number 4, change your passwords. Now, for those of you who are joined any of the cybersecurity workshops that we've run or are familiar with us, you'll know this is a common theme and there's a good reason for it. Brad, talk to us about changing your passwords.
If you come to the workshop the other week, you'd recognise a lot of people have the same password across multiple devices. And this time of the year especially, cyber criminals understand that people are not on high alert for things that are happening. And we have often seen compromises of websites, of businesses, of all sorts of things over the Christmas break because everyone's idle. They're into the prawns and beers and whatever else happens at Christmas time. And I think it's a healthy thing in this period, if you've got time, is to get into your logins and change your passwords. Get them into a password app like 1Password or Bitwarden, which we've explained to in our recent webinars. They are great products, and it's a healthy thing to do and do regularly, and get those passwords complex so they're actually quite long. One of the ones we do recommend, and people never change these sorts of things, is your home modem password. Get that thing changed, get it stored into an app, and if you're in there and then there's a firmware update that can be done, that's another thing you can actually do, is to change the update the firmware on your modem while you're changing the password on there as well. And this is your home Wi-Fi as well. A lot of people go, I can't be bothered changing that. The password to the Wi-Fi, it's been like that for 8 years, whatever that is. They're healthy things to change. And you actually realise what's connected to your Wi-Fi. You can do a bit of an audit on it as well. And a lot of the time you'll find old iPhones and all sorts of stuff in there that don't even need to be in the system anymore. So that's a good thing, to get your passwords changed on applications and anything that you've got access to. Get them stored into an app like 1Password or Bitwarden.
Yeah, look, often the home modems are supplied by the providers like Telstra, for example, and they're not the world's greatest modems to start with. They're often already kind of older technology. That's why they can provide them at no cost. And so knowing that, keeping the firmware up to date, because often, the modem just sits there, right? It sits there at home for years. As Brad said, the password never changes and the modem just sits there. And unless it stops working, you don't really think about it. But there will be firmware updates for your modems. And it's really important. In the same way that you install your Windows updates and your Apple operating system updates, it's the same thing. There's all sorts of bug patches and security fixes and so on that are relevant for your devices like the modem as well. So if you're not sure how to do it, I mean, if you're one of the IT Basecamp clients, give us a ring and ask us. If you've got a different provider, ask them, or you can also YouTube it. You'd be amazed, as you probably well know, what you can find on YouTube. So it's often just a case of plugging it in, knowing where to go, and there's an update available, download update. But it really is worth doing. Because we can have all the best security at the office in the world, but if we then go home to a fundamentally weak system, well, where's the biggest gap? And the cyber criminals, they know that. The soft target is often the home target for companies they're looking to breach. All right, number 5, be vigilant when receiving emails and SMS. I think we probably can all relate to getting an increased volume of spammy emails and SMS. I know I certainly have, and this week in particular, loads of really dodgy SMSs, which clearly not click on. But Brad, why is it so important? Why should we be extra vigilant around receiving dodgy emails and SMS?
We're no strangers to online shopping these days, and I'm sure a lot of people have done their shopping for Christmas and various other things online and waiting for shipping to turn up. And these are where cyber criminals understand and appreciate that people are waiting on things. It's a common open gap, and people think they're getting a shipping advice from Toll or any of those guys. I'm logging into my bank to pay bills at the moment, and there's a pop-up about phishing and SMS attacks. They're just happening so regularly, presenting themselves as banks, presenting themselves as shipping companies, all those sorts of things. And the only way, as we talk about, is if in doubt, don't click on it. If in doubt, delete it. I'm sure that device will turn up, or that piece of shipping will turn up. And a lot of those things like Australia Post, Star Trek and Toll and all those sorts of things, you need to make sure they're trusted bits of information that you're receiving before you click on them. So, and not a lot of them actually send text and stuff anymore. They're mostly via email and branded, and again, but they can be phishing attacks and ransomware as well. So just really hover over those links and be sure. And when it's SMS, I very rarely respond to any SMSs where I click on things unless I've initiated them. So if I've initiated an SMS to come to me for a password recovery or a link to get into something, I'm expecting it, that's a valid choice. So, yeah.
And without being melodramatic, it can be just that one click of the wrong link that infects that device with malware that leads to a breach of the network, which leads to, for example, a ransomware attack. It's not being melodramatic. That's how it works. That's the point. So it really can be one stray click. And we're going to talk about manufactured urgency a little later down this list. But it feels relevant here as well. A lot of the messages, they do create a sense of urgency. The one of the ATO ones, which is quite successful, is that you owe the ATO money. Like, click here. Yeah, it's Ben's right in his hand. He's had it. He's received it. Or maybe he does owe the ATO money. Who knows?
Yeah.
But they create urgency, and we're human, and we have human behavior traits, obviously, and they know that. And so the messages are often carefully scripted to create that sense of urgency and make us want to, I have to deal with it now. I need to get rid of that. And so the same here, when we're receiving emails and SMS, just slow down a little. Because at the end of the day, if you allow yourself to read it properly, and if you allow yourself the time to take it into context, does this make any sense that I'm getting this? Why would from this company or at this time? And normally our little subconscious alarm bell will sound. And the general rule of thumb is give yourself the opportunity for that internal alarm bell. And if you hear the alarm bell, even if it's the tiny version, listen to it, because it's normally right. There's something not right about what you're looking at. And as Brad said, if you're not 100% sure, don't click on it. Don't open it. Just delete it. If it's really legitimate and important, it'll find you another way. It'll come back to you for sure.
Matt, just on this, and maybe an extension as well, is it happened to be my nephew's birthday yesterday. And I went onto his Facebook to wish him happy birthday. And then I went to his Facebook page because his family, and started looking down, and only to realise that, and I'm pretty sure his Facebook account had been compromised. So it was a happy birthday, well done for turning 22, and also I think you should get your Facebook account looked at. So when it comes to ads on Facebook, a lot of them, they're clickbait, and they are malware sometimes potentially. So they're the other areas that you need to look at as well as the emails and SMSs. So that's a bit of an extension on that one while I would think of it. And it was only last night. That's what made it fresh in my mind to bring it up.
Yeah, sure. No, good point. All right, number 6, we've touched on it, but we're going to reinforce it. Update your machines and devices. We've already talked about, in particular, your home modem, but also the modem at the office. I mean, all of the devices. Not only at the office, but at home as well. And for any of you who have watched the Fundamentals series, we have the case study in there, Karen, what ultimately led to her having her identity stolen and making her life miserable for many, many weeks, was her kids playing on her old laptop that wasn't updated. New laptop was updated, but the old one was not, because it's the old laptop, right? The kids use it. And yeah, they did nothing wrong. They were playing a computer game and an ad popped up for an extra feature or whatever to do with that game. And they thought, brilliant. And they clicked on it, and it was a piece of malware, and that infected the system. And 2 or 3 days later, her phone stopped working. Her social media was blocked her banks blocked her. It was a whole world of hurt, and her identity was stolen. And it was simply because her old laptop at home, and Brad mentioned the old iPhone that's kind of kicking around in a drawer somewhere, still connecting to the Wi-Fi if it's got power. If the phone, if you plug it in, give it some life in the battery, and it connects to the Wi-Fi again, but it's not up to date. And I think we've probably all got old devices kicking around at home, but even the ones that are current, like the modem, really important to update them. So number 7, this is a really practical one, and I appreciate that, Brad, you put this in. Stay in touch with the news. So we're talking about when you go off on holiday, you might be traveling, you might be at home, kicking around by the pool with the kids. Why is that so important, Brad? Why is that relevant?
Look, any major cyber breaches are hot topics these days. And to know if you're actually in scope for those, I think staying in touch with the news every now and again is really important. The tech news on a lot of the news websites is it's a category, and I'd suggest a bit of a thumb over that every few days. I certainly do. I stay in touch and have a few websites that I go to just to look at what's out there and what's happening. Things are discovered in products all the time. An example, a lot of businesses use WordPress as their CMS and product on their website, and so often and we've just seen this in some of the penetration tests that we've been doing, that there's these compromised WordPress products. Sometimes it's widespread, but staying in touch with the news, some of those things, if they're big enough, they're advertised, and that's really important to do. So.
Absolutely. And here we're just talking about a bit of a pulse check. It doesn't mean you have to sit and watch the whole news. And it could be you just search for technology news, for example. But if you think about the relatively recent Optus, Medibank breaches, I mean, lots of people, millions of people were affected by those. And you'd kind of want to know, wouldn't you? If you were affected by it, you kind of need to know so that you can take action. And that might be logging into change passwords and so on, and understand what the necessary steps are to kind of protect yourself because your data's been breached. So, but we're just talking about a quick pulse check every couple of days. Just kind of keep your finger on the pulse of what's going on in at least the technology space. Good.
And I saw that yesterday, actually, talking to another friend, and he was in the Medibank compromise, and he said, I can't believe what information they've got of mine. It was a bit of an eye-opener for me. So yeah, staying in touch is really good.
Yeah, good. Number 8, disable and enable your VPN, which doesn't really make a lot of sense until Brad talks us through it.
So again, like the Wi-Fi in the office, if you've got a virtual private network connection back to your office and it's not being used for that period of time, those policies can be disabled to turn that VPN off. VPNs, website logins, all those things, hackers try and attack and log in. If they discover a VPN on a network, they'll actually sit there and try and connect to it. And they'll use a dictionary of usernames and passwords and continue to try and compromise a VPN connection because they're looking for what's behind it. So if it's unattended and not being used, again, you can get those disabled. And on the other side, enabling your VPN, if you're traveling, there's a couple of really, really good products out there for when you're using public Wi-Fi networks and traveling. One of them or two of them we recommend, ExpressVPN or NordVPN, are two that we recommend as applications that you can put on your mobile phone and on your devices. And when you're on a public or guest Wi-Fi, you enable those VPN connections and they create a secure tunnel back to various servers around the network that give you a gateway other than where you're coming off that public Wi-Fi, because you never know, depending on where you are, whether public Wi-Fi networks have actually been compromised and hackers are sitting there waiting for people to come in with devices that they actually may have access to. So we always recommend, if you're traveling, to get those VPNs installed on the devices you're traveling with.
We'll have the link. So we're going to share with you after this. We're going to share a link to a landing page that has these 12 tips on. And there's going to be some backlinks in there for ExpressVPN and NordVPN. And just to be clear, they're not affiliate backlinks. They just link straight to the website. We've got no financial interest in you taking on those products. I've used ExpressVPN for over a decade now. And it's permanently on my phone. It just sits there in the background, turned on. And so when by public spaces, we're talking about cafes, hotels, airports, anywhere that's not your own at the end of the day, it's not your own network, consider it public and consider that it's got risk attached to it, to the point where I don't tend to use cafe Wi-Fi. I just hotspot off my phone that's got the VPN on. So I'm not actually connecting to an outside network at all. But nonetheless, I find ExpressVPN really user-friendly, worth every dollar. There's a couple of bonuses around this one, and that's to do with, we understand not everyone's going to be staying at home over the festive period. Some people are going to be traveling, and actually the next 3 little bonus points, they're relevant for if you're ever traveling. It's not just around the Christmas period. But the first one is, if you're traveling, make sure that your insurance has a cybercrime provision included in case of attack. Most people take out travel insurance when they're going to travel either domestically or particularly overseas. And more and more, there are insurance policies available that include cover for if you are the subject of a cyber attack. And Brad, why is that useful? What's the purpose of that?
Like, I've spoken to so many people that have lost their phone on a train in Thailand or somewhere when they're moving around, and they have everything in their phone. If that gets into the wrong hands, especially in third world countries or countries where there's a lot more cybercrime than Western countries, I'm not saying that Western countries are any better, your phone's the keys to the kingdom a lot of the time, especially if they can break into them. I suggest looking at your travel insurance and seeing what provisions they have in there and asking that question, and if they do offer it, or if it's covered under one of the other clauses for loss and what you can actually do. That's obviously the first note. You want to keep going with those, Matt?
Yeah, sure. So again, the second bonus, if you like, if you're traveling, make sure that you have your banking contact details, so your account number and the contact numbers for the bank. Importantly, not your login details, but your account number and the contact numbers for your bank, and even your consulate details. Leave them with someone you trust, because if you only have them on your phone, guess what? That's not helpful if it's your phone that's been stolen or compromised. So someone you trust can be back at home, whose number you've got in your head. You can get in touch with them and they can make those account numbers available to you. As Brad said, often we're encouraged to, in many ways, by the phone manufacturers. They make it easy for us to store everything on our devices, which is wonderful until the device is no longer available for whatever reason. So that's just a real practical tip, really. And also, if you're traveling, make sure you have your phone contents backed up to something like iCloud or Google Drive or something similar. Again, if you have your phone lost or stolen, if it's not backed up, everything on it's gone. You have to assume you're never going to see it again. So good practice anyway to have that turned on. These days, data and storage facilities are so economical with the Apples and Googles of this world that, again, I've just had mine permanently backing up. Whenever it's connected to Wi-Fi, it's backing up, and I don't even notice. So those are the three bonus tips around there in case you're traveling. And they don't just apply to Christmas, clearly. Number 9, this is a cracked record for those of you who have been around us for a while, but number 9, use multi-factor authentication, or MFA, or sometimes known as 2FA or two-factor authentication. Talk us through it, Brad.
These days, if you're using a password app like 1Password or Bitwarden, a lot of them actually identify what products have 2FA on them. In conjunction with changing your password, if you can upgrade your logins to websites or to banks or to any of these places and put 2FA on, certainly do that and use the 2FA apps available.
Well, look, there's going to be some links to a couple of the big authenticator apps like Google and Microsoft have one as well. The backlinks are going to be in there. And again, no financial interest, just wanting to share the love. Number 10 of 12, be vigilant when shopping online. Now, Brad touched on that already, but maybe under the banner of kind of clickbait and adverts, Brad, just remind us again why it's so important to be vigilant.
There's so many places in online shopping where cyber criminals are after your money. You're about to put your credit card in somewhere, checking the padlocks. That's a very common thing to make sure a site's secure. Looking at the URL when it redirects for you to pay, making sure it's going to the right place or seems like a right place and it seems safe. All those things are really, really important. And as I said, social media, sometimes the clickbait gets in before their bots come through and tidy stuff up that's recognised malware. They have a team of thousands looking at this information as it gets uploaded, but certainly on social media sites, be very wary of things that you click on. The Mel Gibson one still seems to pop up every now and again. He's a popular guy when it comes to clickbait, but there's a lot of them out there, so just be wary of those things.
Yeah, sure. And the safest way to shop online, stay on the major sites and never click on adverts. That's going to help a lot. Okay, so conscious of time, this one, it's got a bit of meat to it though. Number 11, make sure your data is backed up. Now here, we've mentioned that particularly for your phone if you're traveling, but if you think about all of the data in your business and personal life, but let's talk about the business for now, having that backed up. But how should that be backed up, Brad?
We recommend, it's called an air-gapped backup or a disconnected backup. In the days of old, we used to use tapes and we used to use hard drives and we'd swap those drives around. now with ransomware, a successful ransomware attack encrypts all data, including backups, if they're connected to a network that a criminal can get to. What they actually do is they'll compromise a business network, get in, and then sit and watch, and they'll do discovery and understand where things are, because their aim is to lock your entire business up and give you no options out. And that's what happened with businesses as big as JBS Meats, which are in 15 countries and employ massive amounts of people. They encrypted all their stuff, and it was pretty brutal. And that's a big business. Obviously, they're after lots of money there, but it doesn't matter. There's junior cyber criminals out there looking for smaller businesses as well. It doesn't really matter the size of your business. They're just after money, and they're going to extort you in any way they can. So disconnected backups are really, really important, and we call them air-gapped backups. And we can certainly engage that for our IT Basecamp clients if they're interested.
Yeah, sure. I know we've been getting the feedback in recent weeks, it can feel overwhelming, all of this advice and what to do and all these different things to do, as well as running a busy business in a busy world and all the family commitments and so on. But in this example, if backing up your data seems like an inconvenience or you're too busy for it, in this moment, ask yourself these two questions and be really honest with yourself. Number one, will you pay a ransom in the hope you get your data back? If you don't have a backup, so the only data you've got is now encrypted, would you want to pay a chunk of money in Bitcoin that you'll never get back and hope you get your data back? Because by paying the ransom doesn't guarantee you get your data back. And the second question is, really imagine what would it look like in your business, in your life, if it took weeks to decrypt your data? Because even when you get the decryption key, it can take weeks to get everything really back to normal and back online and so on. And what would that mean to your business, to your life, versus a bit of an inconvenience to be proactive and get this disconnected or air-gap backup in place? So dealer's choice to back up or not, the choice is yours, but just reflect on how you answered those questions to yourself. All right, really conscious of time. And this one's really important, especially if you're a business owner or in a management position and you have staff reporting to you. Number 12, set the ground rules for your staff. Brad, take it away.
A lot of the time, cyber criminals through social engineering are trying to get people to do things that aren't correct. And in this situation, paying bills. So you have someone that works in accounts, they manufacture an email from the accounts person to the person that authorizes the bills and say, you need to pay this now. A lot of the time people will just think, oh, I've got to do that. It's time pressure. It's all about that. They make it urgent, like we spoke about before. And all I can say for staff, if you've got your accounts staff and you've got people that approve bills, that verbal communication is the best key, and checking to make sure that any sort of payment that may be random that comes in via email or chat or any of those sorts of things, or have two-step methods with banking, which is something we recommend as well. And it's recommended on a lot of cyber insurance policies these days to have two people in the mix of actually approving to pay invoices. So making sure you tell staff that I'm not going to send you something to ask you to pay something via email or all those sorts of things is really, really important. And that's part of the education that we do in Cyber Heroes as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So make it really clear to your staff that you will never send them emails or messages, particularly over a holiday period, asking them to do anything like that. And that if they receive any communication, they should always speak to you personally, even if that means waiting a day or not, and really reinforce that they won't be in trouble for double checking. That's really important, because the cyber criminals, they're clever, and they'll use the levers of human psychology. And alongside the, oh, this is urgent and I'm busy all today, so I can't be contacted. So they kind of take out that, oh, okay, so I'm not to get in touch with you, but I've got to do it because it's urgent. They really do pull those levers. So just make it clear to your staff that that's not going to be a thing. Conscious of time, those are the 12 tips. We absolutely will take some questions after we've just gone through a little bit I'd like to talk about. And then for sure, we've got all the time to answer questions and so on. But at the end of the day, we create this content because at some stage, every business and everybody on the planet is likely to become a victim of cybercrime. And frankly, we don't want you to be one of them. So if you're ever in a position where you think you may have been hacked, go to help www.cyberheroes.com.au, and that's where you'll find the 5 easy and really practical steps you should follow immediately, even if you think you've been hacked. If you suspect it, just go there. There's 5 easy practical steps you can follow, and that should be very helpful to you. And we're going to be emailing you a link to a bonus resource that we've created in relation to the 12 tips we've just gone through. So I could see a bunch of you are taking notes, which I appreciate, and I kind of let that roll because it helps to reinforce the learning when we write things down. But actually, we're going to share a link with you that takes you to what we've discussed today. And it's designed, to be honest, so that you can share it with your staff. And why not even use it in your next team meeting before everyone heads off on holidays? So with that said, again, we're going to hang around for Q&A, but from Brad and I for now, thanks as always for investing your time to keep yourself safe online. Have an amazing holiday period, and we'll see you next time.
Merry Christmas, everybody. Thank you.